I met Daniel when I was in my early 20s, young and unsure of who I was, but certain that I had found something rare in him. He was kind in a way that didn't demand attention, steady like the earth under your feet, and he gave me more love than I ever believed I deserved. We got married young, moved into a modest little apartment with leaky faucets and thin walls, and began stitching together a quiet, honest life. But somewhere between those ordinary days and the years that followed, I lost sight of myself. Of us. It wasn't sudden, more like a slow unraveling. I began to feel invisible, like I was dissolving into the routine, my identity swallowed by the sameness of each day. And instead of reaching for Daniel, instead of telling him I felt like I was vanishing, I turned to the outside world. I sought glances, words, touches, anything that made me feel noticed, alive, wanted. What started as a single, careless mistake spiraled into something uglier. The affair didn't just happen once. It lasted for 4 years. It wasn't even a tragic romance or a sweeping love story I could use to fool myself. No, it was a series of meaningless flings. Faces I barely remember, names I couldn't even repeat if I tried. It wasn't love. It was validation, escape, a selfish hunger I fed behind the back of the man who trusted me more than anyone ever had. I told myself lies to sleep at night. That Daniel was always working. That we barely talked anymore. That I needed something more, something exciting, but none of it was true. The truth was, I was a problem. I took his devotion and twisted it into a blindfold, so I could do what I wanted without facing what I was becoming. I was reckless with a heart that only ever loved me with pure intention. When I finally came clean, years after it all had ended, when I thought I had moved beyond it, Daniel didn't scream. He didn't cry or fall apart. He just sat there, like all the life had been drained out of him, as if someone had reached inside and flipped a switch to turn him off. And then, without a word, he stood up, walked into our bedroom, packed a bag, and left. The door clicked shut behind him, and with it, the life we had built vanished. I didn't hear from him for months. When contact finally came, it wasn't his voice on the phone or his name in my inbox. It was a letterhead, his lawyer's. He wanted a divorce. No conversation. No counseling. No explanation. He wanted no contact. He wanted distance that couldn't be bridged. I tried everything. I wrote letters, long ones that bled with regret and apologies. I emailed, called, even reached out to his family, hoping that someone would help me speak the truth I should have told long ago. But I was met with silence. His absence spoke louder than any words ever could. It was a silence so complete it echoed. And truthfully, I earned every bit of it. I broke something sacred in him, something that couldn't be repaired no matter how much time passed. I shattered the foundation of who we were. Years drifted by like slow-moving storms. I tried to build something better from the rubble of who I had been. I went to therapy. I worked at a women's shelter, trying to help those who felt lost like I once had. I got a job, found a rhythm, learned to live quietly, humbly. I did anything I could to feel like a decent human being again. But beneath it all, a small part of me held on to hope like a worn photograph. Faded and creased, but still visible. I hoped Daniel would somehow see that I had changed, that he'd see I wasn't the same broken, selfish girl who betrayed him, that he'd believe I loved him in some broken, misguided way all along. Then one day I saw him, in a bookstore of all places, surrounded by stories, lives on paper. He looked older. His features were harder, more carved by time and pain, but there was a strength in him that hadn't been there before. He seemed whole. I smiled and softly said his name. He looked at me with polite unfamiliarity, nodded, and said, "Do I know you?" That single line gutted me. I wasn't expecting a reunion or forgiveness. I wasn't hoping for a hug or some grand, romantic gesture. But I wasn't prepared to be erased, to be nothing but a ghost from a chapter he had closed and burned. I tried to speak, tried to explain, to remind him. I told him I never stopped loving him, that what I did was unforgivable, yes, but my love was real. He stood there quietly, eyes unreadable, and said, "You loved how I made you feel. You didn't love me." And then he turned and walked away. I haven't seen him since. That moment, his voice, his face, the finality of it, plays over and over my mind. It loops like a song with no end, no mercy. Maybe it's selfish to want forgiveness. Maybe it's even cruel to wish someone would remember the good when all you gave them was the bad. But I do wish it, every single day. And the worst part isn't losing him. It's knowing that I don't even exist in his memory anymore. I'm not the woman he loved. Not the ex-wife who made a mistake. Not even a cautionary tale. I'm nothing. And maybe after what I did, that's exactly what I deserve. People love to say that time heals everything. But that's not always true. Sometimes time just thickens the silence, makes the guilt heavier, more permanent. I've built a quiet life. I do my best to be good, to be kind. But there are still nights when I dream of him. I see him laughing, calling me babe, reaching for my hand like he used to, and then I wake up alone. Sometimes I wonder if I ever truly understood what love was back then. If I'd really grasped how precious it was, I never would have treated it like something disposable. I think I loved him the best way I knew how at the time. But it wasn't enough. My best then was full of holes, full of shadows, and it wasn't enough. Now, all that's left is the weight of my choices and the quiet ache of a future that could have been. Every time I see a couple laughing in the park or hear someone say they've been married for 30 years, I think of Daniel. I think of the version of us that never got to grow old together. I cheated for 4 years, a long time ago. But the pain I caused is still alive in him, I'm sure. And the regret? It's still alive in me. I don't blame him for pretending I never existed, for acting like I never loved him. Because maybe in the end, love isn't just a feeling. It's how you protect what you love. And I didn't.